Hey there everyone, and welcome back to some RPG horror story cringe with DnD Doge. In today's episode, we have a tale about one game master's experience running a nightmare of a one-shot, where players are overly late, and one in particular has nefarious intentions. So without further ado, and since this is a bit of a long one, let's get right into the story. The Pie Shot: Why I Had Gave Up on Running One-Shots for a Long Time, by Reddit user Mr. Eichart. This event occurred a number of years ago now, so some of the events may be slightly condensed for the sake of retelling, as well as I might be confusing who did what slightly. The events proper occurred in 2015 or 2016. During September, I'd expressed interest in running a Call of Cthulhu-esque game using the End of the World rules as a Halloween event. I vaguely recall that the books came out recently, and I was intrigued in running something with them. We had been playing Pathfinder and one of my homebrew games for the past few years, so something different was needed. My usual group of friends and players were interested, but I had some interest from a few other folks that were friends of friends. I let everyone know what the game was going to be and what to expect. It took a few weeks, but we got the folks that wanted to play ironed out, and got them the rules so they can look over things before the one-shot. Most everyone ignored reading the rules, but I expect that constantly. I explained that the game is going to be using the standard character creation for the End of the World, which is making a version of themselves. I offer the option to allow them to make a character up instead, but it is turned down by everyone since they thought it was an interesting idea. I did a session 0 to get things arranged, with 2 players not showing up. I get everyone else taken care of, but suggest showing up early to finish character creation on the day of the game. I set the meetup time of 1 o'clock on Saturday, and we all agree to that schedule. We discuss food, but I make the mention that everyone should get something before the game, and we can order something later. So, to set the stage further, I should introduce the group for the story. We have the following people. The GM, me. Singer, a sometimes annoying person or player, but make note that he is not a bad person or player. He does try a little too hard and does overcomplicate things. Fat Man, an old friend who suffers from ADHD hard. He uses it as an excuse for some poor behavioral habits and trying to get out of things that he doesn't want to do, but a good guy for the most part. Leech. At the time of our story, he is a really close friend. He never did anything other than Pathfinder and wanted to try something else. Wallflower. Leech's friend, and a pretty nice guy, though never played any tabletop RPGs in his life. And Cat Piss. Friend of Fat Man. He wanted to play D&D, but never got around to finding a group that would take him. He smelled of cat piss from the 7 or 12, I can't remember, cats that his mother had. Well, you can have cats and not have everything smell like cat piss. It's called taking care of your cats and being clean. On Saturday, at 9:10 or so, I get up to the store and begin prepping the back room that we were to play in. It takes about an hour to get everything I need set up and get my music playlist and ambient sound set to proper keybinds so I can call lightning over the background music at any time. Leech and Wallflower are the first to show up at about 10:15. They were late since Wallflower works 3rd shift, so he didn't get up on time, though no worries. I walked through things with Wallflower since he was one of the players that missed the session 0. 10:30 rolls around, and still no other players. I call Singer and get no answer, so I leave a voicemail. I call Fat Man, and he says that he is on the way to pick up cat piss and should be there in 20 minutes. At 11 o'clock or so, Singer shows up with Chipotle, apologizing for being late. They were super busy, and he had been waiting in line for almost 40 minutes for his food, so he gives me chips, and I am placated temporarily. 12:15. I call Fat Man, and he says that they are getting food and will be on the way shortly. 12:45. I get a message saying that they will be here soon. 1:10. Fat Man and Cat Piss finally arrive. I don't let my frustrations get the best of me, and I go over the rules with Cat Piss since he was the other player to miss the session 0. He seemed to not care much about anything I was explaining, but was wanting to start the game since he had to work later, which was odd since I was told when we were planning things that no one was working and I could do an 8-hour game session. He says it's not till later, so not to worry. So I let it go and decide to get to character creation. Character creation for this is a bit odd, so to summarize, you have 3 characteristic blocks: physical, mental, and social. In each of these, you have an offensive and a defensive attribute. You have one in each attribute starting out, but you place points in your attributes up to a max of 5 points total in each one. When finished, players vote on the numbers listed to fit the avatar of yourself that you are creating. For the most part, the players did well stating themselves. I could feel that the numbers matched accurately enough, but Cat Piss had other ideas. He intentionally sabotaged the vote several times, most prevalently against Singer. Singer's points were, in my humble opinion, the most accurate to himself. Cat Piss made it clear that he wanted Singer's mental attributes to be 0. I got a bit mad, but I told myself not to make a mountain out of a molehill just yet, and calmly told him that that's not how this works, and to not antagonize another player. We finish up with character creation, and it's already after 2 o'clock. I begin the game trying to set the mood. Their friend, me, inherited a house and is moving in on Halloween, and wanted to invite them to spend it with him and celebrate. They take up my offer and head down to Lovecraft County, Ohio. My little spin on the mythos and my hatred for Ohio. I am an Iohoian, and we all hate it here. Well, that's understandable, considering now that the air and water is poison. It was to make it feel more grounded in reality. Everyone but Cat Piss is enthused by the bit of build-up, as I have to rush them along, skipping several planned events since we started later than I wanted to. The whole time, Cat Piss is talking over me to Fat Man about Yu-Gi-Oh! And other things not relevant to the game. I ask him to not try and talk over me while I'm explaining things, and to save it for when we go on break. He gets huffy with me and quiets down for a while. They go out to get gas at the local small gas station, and while my avatar filled the tank and paid, they were free to explore and do whatever. Most went down to the diner to get something to eat and got to interact with the locals and the sheriff. Cat Piss wanted to stay in the car, and when I asked if that's what he wanted, he said, "Yeah, sure." I try to do a few things for him, but he ignores what I put in front of him. I shrug and continue doing what I do best. After about 30 to 40 minutes of role-playing, the players leave the diner and head into town. I leave them be, as my avatar goes to get the keys from the lawyer, allowing the players to then explore the town before they continue. Cat Piss, once again, refuses to interact with anything, or anyone for that matter. I try again to no avail to give Cat Piss something to latch onto. Singer, on the other hand, managed to find some missing persons flyers, showing that multiple teens and young adults have gone missing, with Leech finding out from the local gossip that a deputy's wife is missing, and they think she left because she was having an affair. Wallflower meets some teenagers, and they talk about how they plan on doing a seance in the woods to see if the spirits in the forest know what happened to the missing teens. After about 25 minutes of roleplay and discovery, the players head out to the house. While I'm explaining the house and the area around it, Cat Piss once again interrupts. He was wanting to know when the game was going to start. I looked confused for a moment and asked him to repeat himself. He says again, "When's the game going to start?" Leech chimes in, wondering what he is smoking. Then Cat Piss explains that he was hoping to have been killing something by now. I retort that this was not that kind of game, and that I explained that before. This is a horror mystery game, the unknown horror, the thing that lurks in the shadows that we are oblivious to, not some hack and slash. Crap will hit the fan, but not yet. Then cat piss once again gets huffy and settles back down. Man, this game doesn't sound like it's shaping up good. Between everyone showing up late and cat piss's shady attitude. But as this is a long story and things are probably going to get much worse, I think we could all use a quick kitty intermission. Ah, there we go. And now that we got our wholesome levels back up, let's continue on with this story. I continue, albeit a bit more flustered. They explore the house as my avatar unpacks the truck, and they notice things about the house that are odd, but not anything outright malicious, just the standard tropes for this type of game. Wallflower is really coming into the game at this point, as he uses his character to great effect, despite being a new player. While exploring the house, they found an old locked jewelry box with no key that had writing on the lid that, when they looked it up on their phones, read something about holding back the darkness, written in Latin. Cat Piss, on the other hand, is trying to pry decorative swords off the wall of the study. When questioned why he wants to do that, he responds back with, "For when the GM tries to kill us." Once again, I am beyond upset with Cat Piss, but I calm down enough to explain what metagaming is, that it was bad and he should not do it. At this point, he says that he will just steal them. So I groan once again and ask him verbatim, "So you're planning to steal some fake swords from your friend's new house?" And not even looking away, he responded, "Yes." At that point, I call break so I can get some fresh air and calm down. It was about 4 o'clock when the suggestion was made to go on a food run. They want to go to the local drive-in and get some quick cheap food, though I'm not hungry at this point, so they head off together while I sit and relax. At some point, I guess I passed out, cause I only remember coming to around 4:45, and they weren't back yet. I send a message to Fat Man and get no reply. I call Leech and get told that they had to stop at Kroger and will be back soon. I end up sitting there waiting until about 6 o'clock. By now, I was furious as they walked in. Milkshakes, burgers, and a pie and ice cream. I looked at them confused as they sat back down at the table. I questioned them about the pie, and Fat Man explains that they had this stand that was selling pies in the drive-thru's parking lot, and that they decided to get one. They then needed to get plastic silverware, so they then drove to Kroger on the opposite end of town, since they were closer to that one than the one back towards the store. They then end up buying other things and forgot what time it was, so they quickly went to someone's house, I don't remember whose anymore, to reheat the pie because no one likes a cold apple pie. And then they came back. "You went on a 2-hour pie break? Are you effing kidding me?" I said as my disbelief was immeasurable. I was so filled with indignation that I almost walked out of the door at that point. I was just so done with everyone at the table, but Singer calmed me down. He, Wallflower, Leech, and Fat Man wanted to continue, though Cat Piss had other ideas. So, against my better judgment, I continued. They have the first night in the home, and things get a bit weird as they hear unearthly howls in the night. Luckily for some, they are able to just go back to sleep and ignore it, though Cat Piss and Wallflower get affected and are basically unable to sleep peacefully, causing them issue come morning. Cat Piss calls bullcrap and grumbles about it, while Wallflower plays it up and talks about the howling last night with the other players. They decide to go back into town and check in with the local locksmith to see if he could open the box. Cat Piss, of course, wants to stay behind, but thankfully the rest said no and forced him into coming along. I left my avatar back at the house, so I didn't infringe on their investigation into the box. While in town, Cat Piss decides to sit down on a park bench and do nothing, while the others get the box open and see the contents within. It was multiple letters from WW2, talking about war profiteering, but also letters talking about a creature that chased them as they left France. The mystery was getting deeper, and most of my players were invested more and more into what was happening. But then, Cat Piss says, "Well, this has been boring. I need to get to work." I look at the clock, and it's only 7 o'clock. I ask him what time does he have to be there, and he tells me that he has to get home and get stuff done before work, like get a shower. Fat Man was his ride, so he had to take him back home. I put a pause on things at that point, and the rest of us, Fat Man included mind you, decide that once Fat Man was back, we would continue. So Fat Man takes Cat Piss home and doesn't come back. I call him, but it goes to voicemail. It's about 8 o'clock when we finally hear from him, and Fat Man explains that he forgot and went home. It was at that point that I break. I was done. I was so mad that I started to angry cry. I apologized to Singer, Wallflower, and Leech for how bad things went, and that I basically failed them as a GM. They were upset as well and wanted to continue, but I could not bring myself to do so. I packed up my things and talked with them a bit longer, called it a night, and drove home. Later, I would find out from Fat Man that Cat Piss was happy about the game. It was strange, so I asked him what he meant. Fat Man would tell me that Cat Piss was 100% wanting to mess up my game so that I would run something that he wanted to play in. He wanted to, quote, beat the GM, as it were. But since I wasn't giving him a means to do it in game, he took it out of game. I told Fat Man that Cat Piss is never invited to any games I run, and I will not participate in anything that he is invited to under threat that I might toss Cat Piss down a well if I see him. Obviously a means of conveying my dislike of the man, but I wouldn't have minded wringing his neck if I could have gotten away with it. Since then, I have never ran another one-shot, which is saying something since I had been running Halloween one-shots since about 2009 at that point. Looking back, I should have done so many things to try and fix the situation, but that's the benefit of hindsight. I should have put my foot down with Cat Piss more than I did. I should have been more direct with him about his attitude. I should have just not let him play in the first place. I am no longer friends with Leech or Singer, and Fat Man is still a friend, but a distant one, since moving out of state. I never found out what happened to Cat Piss. Last I heard, he inherited money from a rich relative and bought a house, flaunting his new wealth in people's faces. And Wallflower, I really have no idea. Since then, I have called this event the Pie Shot, as a means to laugh about it. However, I am still deeply salty about it. Every year I consider doing a Halloween game, but I can never get over the Pie Shot, and it kills my drive to do one. I guess bad games stick with you longer than the good ones do, sadly. Jesus. The story of trying to play this game was more horrific than what OP was planning for the game world. Talk about a bunch of inconsiderate D-bags. First, showing up late for something that OP worked so hard on, and then disappearing for 2 whole hours just for pie? I would be a bit salty too. Then to hear that Cat Piss went into the game with the intention of purposely making it a nightmare for OP in the hopes that OP would just play another system. Talk about a self-entitled prick. I mean, it was a one-shot. If he wasn't into playing it, he could have just not gone to that game. I'm not surprised to hear that he was the type of person to rub his unearned money in people's faces. It really sucks that this whole nightmare of a session turned OP off from running one-shots. But hopefully, they can get over that hump and do so again one day. Let's move on. And as it's Friday, it's time to cap off the week once again with a D&D glory story. Threw my DM for a loop involving a guinea pig. By Reddit user DnD Doge. Hey, I know that guy. In last night's session of a 3-year and ongoing campaign, our party had to go and try to get information from a Lionfolk soldier that was a high-ranking member of the Lion's Guard. He was very abrasive and hostile to our party, and just wanted us gone. Then, the DM said that we noticed that he had a pet guinea pig that was chilling in his mane. With this, I had my rogue, who has a pet ferret chilling in his cloak of elven kind, lured out the ferret so that the lion folk would see it. It was a success, because after the lion folk noticed this, his demeanor did a 180, and he was overtaken by joy and wanted to pet the ferret. I then remembered that I have a cup that, when sipped from, allows speak with animals for 10 minutes at a time, so I offered him a sip so he could talk to his pet. With this, he became giddy and offered us all the information that we were looking for. Our DM then stated that she was not expecting that to go the way it did, and cursed me for making her roleplay a conversation between a lion folk and a guinea pig. I even made sure that my character took a sip from the cup as well, so I could also hear what the guinea pig was saying. I love it when one of the players throws our DM for a loop, and it just so happened that this time I was that player. It just goes to show that as a DM, you never really know what one of the players will come up with. Plus, I think she forgot that I had that item, and the look on her face as I was stating my plan was priceless. Oh, and the item was called Nature's Stein, by the way, in case you were wondering. I should really share some more stories from this campaign in the future, as I can think of quite a few that are pretty awesome. But that will do it for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.